My name is Genevieve. Today I'm going to be reading to you from my book called The Nature of Forces, available on Amazon. Going to pick up with chapter 2 where we left off. My name was Genevieve. It was year of the moon 216. I was young and filled with the wonder of innocence. I lived at the base of the mountain of life, a short walk to my town and a leisurely hike to the river of life where my father and I fished for our dinner daily. The river flowed from deep hues to bright whites through the steep slopes of life-covered rock. The clouds hung low, covering the mountain peaks beyond the green rolling hills into the high swaying trees of deep green and swirls of white that streaked through the atmosphere. I wore my fur soul of rabbit for warmth in the chill of the early morning, but by midday there was of no such need. Without watching my pole, I played with the tiny insects, flicking them away from my exposed feet through the rock cave entrance to my favorite fishing hole. The sun shone in streaks of white of the flowing water's surface. The water glistened in the light as it gently flowed down a rocked case, moss-covered steps into the pool of the clear blue waters. My father stood as he fished. His deep brown eyes peered at the river from under his bushy white eyebrows. His strong chin covered his long white beard that was turning a bit yellow in places. I loved my father, the only parent I had ever known, my friend and my mentor, and I sought out his company and advice with every waking moment. "Daddy, is Mama a spirit of the dead? Is she here with us?" I asked in a desperate yearning for the response that I knew would never come. I had asked this question 100 times, with always the same response. "No, honey," he responded softly. "We burned her body when we returned her to Mother Nature. Her spirit, in all essence, was set free to come again as another. Take comfort in that," he went on. I rolled my eyes. "Without touch, without love, it is no existence at all. Your not Mama will never be," with that depth of despair. This was the first day of my 14th year and the 14th anniversary of my mother's death. Thoughts of her weighed heavily on my mind. My heart sank. Why did I do this to myself? Why did I always do this? I asked these dumb questions that I knew the answers were going to break my heart. I just felt so desperate to know her. Who was she? What did her hands look like? What was the sound of her voice? When she sneezed, was it loud and repeated or soft and subtle? Who was she? And was she in me? While wiping a single tear from my face, I quickly changed the subject. "Daddy, how many people do you suppose live in town?" "I don't know. 1,000, perhaps more," he absent-mindedly responded. "Why do you ask?" "Well, I was thinking that with so many people coming of age, you think there'll be a need to build more homes. Do you suppose I could help?" I answered. "Well, I think that would be just a lovely idea." "Keep watch of your sister," he told Celeste, only 2 years my senior, yet I could not remember a time that I was not in her charge. Truth be told, I had forgot she was there. "I always do," Celeste responded. The statement was filled with subtle sarcasm. I don't think my father noticed. On the other hand, perhaps he assumed it was just her way of talking. Either way, he let it go. To keep the peace. That was my dad, always keeping the peace. He hated it when my sister and I fought, which was every waking moment. He would often ignore our yells of anger and retreat to the mountains to find herbs and whatnot. When he could, he would try to derail a fight. "Daddy," I asked, "why do they build the dam so large?" I could see it off in the distance. It stood as tall as the town circle. It overwhelmed the horizon and stood garishly with its red mud and brick against the soft blues of the midday sun. "It's so ugly." "It won't be once they finished it, my darling," he answered. "It has a great purpose. It will reroute the water from the river of life through the causeways that will lead to town and replenish the farms and crops. In theory, we'll no longer need to depend on the rain to bring a prosperous harvest." "Daddy, we have well water. Why should we recreate something Mother Nature's already gifted us?" I asked. "Well, yes, the water's due to give enough water for the people and livestock. But, honey, wells run dry, and you cannot water an entire crop from a well," he answered. "The dam will be so much more efficient. In theory. Of course, we won't really know for sure until it's online and has been for some time. Often in life, things don't go as planned or hoped for, no matter how much research one puts into it." "I still think it's ugly," I said. "It won't be, though. They have plans to construct a grand obelisk on the north and south end, each with a carved room to light a fire at the top. Lights will be seen from miles away, and in addition they plan to carve and paint statues of the stories of us. They intend to construct calendars mimicking the grand calendar in the town circle. Those, of course, will be built to cast in its shadows as the sun rises at the beginning of each season where it stands. It will be a grand sight, and it will bring our people pride, he responded with enthusiasm. Are you telling me that they're quarrying rocks from nearly 100 miles away, from deep in the dark mountain, just to bring the people pride? It must be exhausting, I asked. My father said with a slight laugh, they're not called beasts of burden by accident. Besides, telling the story of us and sharing our place in history is not just about vanity. It's about leaving a legacy and sharing knowledge. There is no greater gift one can leave, just as the originals did for us when they built the Great Stones of Three and the town circle. How do we know they were the original of our kind? There must have been people before them. Otherwise, where did they come from? I asked. We do not know, honey. They very well may have been our kind long before the record left for us, but all we know is the history they left for us. There are no other known monuments or writings to tell us otherwise. We assume that they are among the first. What we do know is that they were the first of Alexandria. What else and who else may lie beyond our knowledge? What we do know is that our people have resided between the Twin Mountains and the river's delta for 200 years. This is a fact, and until proven otherwise, everything else is fiction, he responded. The warm day had turned into a lovely, crisp fall evening. Celeste and I headed to Alexandria to prepare for my party. I had my favorite rabbit fur to protect me from the slight breeze, and the sun shone from the west horizon, brightly enlightening the rich auburn hue of the turning leaves and the bright oranges and reds that fluttered in the breeze all around me. The sweeping path that led to the town of Alexandria had green blades of grass, flanked by flowers of blues, golds, and purples. The sounds of bees buzzing filled the air, while butterflies fluttered all by us. They came through the ancient trees and over the grassy fields. We walked down the slope of the stone stairs to the town circle. It had all been quarried from the dark mountain many years before my birth. Each row of seating encircled the stage of the bonfire and was surrounded by vendors and entertainers. The bonfire itself burned brightly in the inner circle of the calendar, which consisted of 4 obelisks standing exactly the same height, at least 10 men high. They towered above us and could be seen on the horizon for many miles away, each one adorned with carvings for each seasons that would begin as the sun rose to shine at its peak, casting an individual shadow to the single season of the sun, the season of the rain, the season of change, and the season of rebirth. They had stood indeed. This stage in the circle itself was built by the originals over 200 years ago. Hundreds of the townspeople had already arrived. The bonfire grew to great heights as the people of Alexandria danced to the music of the flute, accompanied by a soprano's soothing lullaby. People of all ages threw brightly colored flower petals down to the stage, where girls danced among the falling petals and fireflies. Some people sat in the stands and watched with delight, while others played games of dice or cards. Every person ate, drank, with laughter and love. We walked by a young couple dressed in matching cotton gowns, tied to the side with rope spun of gold, and they offered people bamboo cups filled with lemonade. "Hi, Genevieve. Would you care for something to quench your thirst?" Dexter asked, holding a cup out in front of him. "We stirred lemon juice with sugar cane to sweeten it," Amber added proudly. "Celeste, you go on. I want to stay here," I said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I turned to the couple and said, "You know you can add cucumbers to water with just a sprig of mint, and it's just as delicious." "Really?" Amber replied. Amber was my age. She had a thin frame and soft reddish-brown hair that curled around her narrow face. She pressed her thin lips together as she talked in a shrill tone. She would quickly become my best friend, though I did not know it at the time. "Yes," I said, "my father's name is Grunswald of the Mountain, and he teaches us of all the wonders of Mother Nature. But I just love to mix delicious flavors together," I whispered while licking my lips. I turned back to find Celeste gone. Not so much as an outline of her long fur coat remained, the one I had made for her. I chose the brightest yellow flowers to dye the cotton and fur to match her golden locks. She always wore it free-flowing in contrast to the tight braids I preferred. She never even thanked me for it, and it's no easy task to dye rabbit fur. Anyhow, she had left me behind with haste. Celeste was always gone, like my father, who would leave us sometimes for weeks at a time. And he would return and bring with him many stones, plants, and herbs, and small creatures of the wood, only then to disappear into his laboratory for many more weeks. I spent my party with the expectant mother and baker Cherie, and her husband, the mapper Spencer, who gifted me a large sugar treat on a stick, called a lollipop. I played hunter with their son Derek, who sang a song to wish me happy birthday. A little girl named Liliana, with curls of red hair and ribbons in her dress, gifted us a rose from the gardens of her family. She, in fact, was gifting one to all the passers-by. The basket full of blossoms she carried was almost as big as she was. My night was filled with food and music and dancing and cake and gifts, and all the people of Alexandria attended. Yet I still felt alone. I would forever be alone. The Nature of Forces by Genevieve, available on Amazon. Get your copy today.